By now, I'm sure most of you would have heard about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens, DeFi, all these new fancy sounding terminologies. But how does it work? What is behind it? And what are its uses? So in this video, I'm going to talk about blockchain technology. Now, the blockchain is a secure, transparent way of storing and transmitting information. It takes the form of a distributed, decentralized ledger. Now, the information on the blockchain are stored in a sequence of blocks, and each one of these are serialized and encrypted, so that tampering with this information becomes very difficult. And this is accomplished using a validation system known as a consensus mechanism, so that everyone who uses the network can trust that the information stored on the blockchain is accurate and reliable. But please note, this is a very basic, simple explanation of the blockchain. Make sure you do your own research, study the risks involved before you choose to invest in anything. I'm going to use a simple example to explain how a blockchain works. So let's say there are 10 of us living in a community. And within this community, we have our own system of credits so that we can make transactions between one another. We need a way to keep track of these transactions. Perhaps we will appoint one person, maybe person number 1, to maintain and control the log of transactions. So let's say, for example, person number 4 wants to pay $20 to person number 7. So it's person number 1's responsibility to ensure the payment is made and it is logged and transacted inside the logbook. So this seems like a pretty simple system to implement, right? However, this presents us with a couple of problems. There is only one logbook and one person maintaining the logbook, which means control over the logbook and control over the system is now centralized with one person. Person number 1 has to be someone that everyone can trust, someone who will act on the interests of the entire community. How do we know that person number 1 can be trusted? How do we know that person number 1 will have such level of ethics and integrity? Now, even if person number 1 can be trusted, the fact that there is only one logbook means that there is a singular point of failure which could jeopardize the entire system and cause it to shut down. Now, if anyone wants to jeopardize or compromise the system, all they have to do is target person number 1. They could break into his house and steal the logbook, or they could hack into his computer, or maybe even burn his house down. You get the idea. Instead of only one person managing and controlling one logbook for the entire community, each person will maintain a logbook in such a manner that all 10 logbooks will be identical to each other. Essentially, what we have now is a system that is more transparent and more reliable. And that's because everybody within the community, within the network, has a logbook, and they are able to see all the transactions that are taking place within the community in real time. Now we no longer need to place all our trust and our reliance on one single person within the community. At the same time, we've also mitigated the issue of there being a singular point of failure, because if someone wanted to tamper with the information or compromise the system, they would have to hack, destroy, or burn all 10 of the logbooks instead of just one. Now everybody within the community, within the network, has one logbook, and there is no centralized control. So this is what is known as a decentralized or a distributed ledger. Now that control over the logbook has been decentralized, how can we know that the information in the logbook is accurate and authentic? How do we ensure that all these new transactions are approved by the community before they are added into the logbook? So approval is achieved using what is known as a consensus mechanism. The main idea here is that there's a set of rules, a set of criteria that has to be met in order for the transaction to be valid and be added into the logbook. And one person within the network will be selected to ensure that the transaction meets all these criteria. How this person is selected, it depends on the type of consensus mechanism. Briefly, a proof of work system is one whereby all the participants will compete to solve a puzzle. Whoever can solve the puzzle first will be the person that is selected to validate the transaction. In a proof of stake system, one person within the network is randomly chosen to validate the transaction. Now, even though the selection process is random, there are ways that you can increase your chances of being selected, such as increasing your stake or increasing the level of your investment in the system. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to go into detail about how these consensus mechanisms work. Perhaps I will do another video in the future where I talk more about it in detail, so if you're interested in that, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. So the consensus mechanism is the system that is in place to ensure that new transactions meet all the rules and all the criteria before it is valid and added into the logbook. It's meant to be a fair and objective process so that everyone that is using the network can trust the information that is being added to the logbook. So now we have a system in place that is firstly decentralized, and it ensures that only valid transactions will be approved by the network or by the community. Now, how is the information added to the log? And how does it ensure that all 10 of these logbooks are synchronized so that they have the most updated information in real time? So this is where the technology component comes in. The entire process is run by algorithms. Now, transactions within this logbook record is stored in what is known as blocks. So when a new transaction happens, a new block is created. So in our earlier example, person number 4 wanted to transfer $20 to person number 7. So the information for this transaction is stored within this block. Information such as the identifier of the sender, person number 4, the identifier of the receiver, which is person number 7, and the amount that is transacted. In this case, it's like 20 of these community credits. So once this transaction has been validated by the consensus mechanism, the block is then encrypted with what is known as a cryptographic hash, which basically is a string of alphabets and numbers. And this is unique to this particular block, so it kind of acts like a serial number. So once the transaction has been completed and this block has been validated, it will be added into the logbook. And the logbook basically is a sequence of transactions, the prior transactions, which are also represented in blocks. Now, each new block that's added to the chain references the serial number of the block that comes before it. So this makes the system very, very difficult to tamper with, because if you want to mess around with this particular block here, that's going to cause its serial number or its hash to change. And when that happens, it's going to affect the rest of the chain that follows it. In any case, you cannot alter the information on any of these blocks without going through the consensus mechanism. So if you're trying something fishy, the entire network is going to know about it. Now, the algorithm is also going to ensure that this process of adding new blocks will happen across all of the 10 logbooks at the same time. So if you want to tamper with the information, it's simply not enough to change just one of the logbooks. You would have to hit all 10 of them simultaneously. And that is very difficult, if not practically impossible to do. So in summary, what have we learned today? The blockchain is a transparent, secure way of storing and transmitting information. The blockchain takes the form of a decentralized and distributed ledger. Now, information is stored within a sequence of serialized and encrypted blocks. It's very, very difficult to tamper with the information. And lastly, the information is verified using a consensus mechanism so that everyone within the community or within the network can trust that the information on the blockchain is accurate and reliable. There are many, many benefits to this new technology. Firstly, the distributed ledger and the consensus mechanism eliminates the need for a central authority, a central body to regulate and control the flow of information. And by doing so, a distributed ledger also eliminates the problem of a singular point of failure. And that makes the network more secure and more reliable. And that leads us to think about all kinds of different applications and users for blockchain technology. Now, it can be used as a secure and fast way to store and transmit information, things like medical records or supermarket inventory. Now, because the system relies on algorithms and trust in a collective body, basically you can use it to execute legal contracts. Because of all the safeguards in place, you actually have less worries that your counterparty cannot be trusted. The blockchain can also be used to verify the authenticity and the uniqueness of digital items, digital collectibles, and this is the primary application behind non-fungible tokens or NFTs. Wow, it sounds like the blockchain is such a new, exciting, and innovative technology. However, it has its flaws as well. One of the main advantages of the blockchain is how information cannot be tampered with or changed. However, this means that you also cannot undo any mistakes or errors. So when making transactions through a blockchain, you really have to ensure that all the information you key in is accurate before you execute, because there's no way of reversing that transaction. Blockchain technology is also criticized because of the imperfections in the consensus mechanism. For example, the proof of work mechanism, in which everyone within the network competes to solve puzzles. Now that can be very time and resource consuming. For example, all the computing power, all the energy that is used just to compete to solve puzzles. There's a compelling case to be made that proof of work may not be so good or friendly to the environment. Another major problem lies in how the different blockchain technologies, they don't communicate and operate with one another very well. Now, every day there are new projects and new innovations in the blockchain space that's coming out. But I think the fact that these new and existing systems, they don't really work well together right now, we are missing out on a lot of opportunities there. Alright, so there we have it. I hope you have a bit more understanding now about blockchain technology, which is the underlying technology that powers the cryptocurrency and the NFT space. Now, I believe that there are so many possibilities, countless applications, and many real-world problems that this technology can solve. But because it's so new and many people don't understand it and don't really know how to value it, hence we see that the market for trading and investing in, things like cryptocurrencies and NFTs is extremely volatile. There are also a lot of scams and a lot of fake projects out there because there is really not much regulation in the space at this time. So the thing is, you could make a lot of money and you could also lose a lot of money. So if you want to invest in this space, make sure you understand the risks involved. Like every other asset class, take some time to study and understand it before you make any decisions about whether you want to add it to your portfolio. So that's it for today's video. Like, comment, subscribe if you found it to be helpful. We'll talk more about these subjects as we go along. I will see you in the next video.